Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So, for the past few months, I've been releasing videos on everything related to healing, sometimes with and sometimes without plant medicine. And I thought that it would be really good to bring a guest to the channel to give a real life example on what healing can actually do. And I think this could potentially even feel more relatable, where you can interact and feel that this could potentially be you or somebody that you know. So instead of releasing a video with more of a lecture kind of style, today we're going to just have a conversation with a very special guest that has a very inspiring story. And when I heard her story, I was really craving a lot to have her in the channel, and I am so happy that she said yes. I know this is a little bit vulnerable for her, and that required some bravery, and that's why I would like to introduce you to our guest Melissa Childs, who is an entertainment executive, and in the next hour or so, we're going to be having a conversation about everything that she has to share, which I hope it will inspire you as much as it did to me. So I would like to say welcome, Melissa, to the channel, and thank you so much for coming and saying yes to this.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. So if you want, you can start by just telling us a little bit about yourself so that the audience can meet you and know who you are.
So I'm 44 years old. I live in Southern California, and I've always been drawn to spiritual work, to healing work. But where I come from, I had a rough childhood. My dad was an alcoholic, rageaholic, abusive emotionally, mentally, physically. My mother was present in the home, but just negligent and not really, sort of in denial about our family situation. I was molested in the church when I was a child, and I was also molested by a teacher in school in my teenage years. So I don't think that there's ever been a time where I have ever known safety. I've never felt safe. And I've been, for most of my life, I've been existing in fight or flight survival mode and always in a state of threat assessment. And so that's just like where I come from, and having complex post-traumatic stress disorder and being a survivor of child sexual abuse. There's a lot that comes with that, and I'm really excited and honored to sort of share, a little bit about my story today and how this work has just changed my life so much.
Just hearing your story already brings goosebumps into my skin and into my being. Just the fact that somebody has to endure stuff like that and come out at some point, even if it has been decades later, on the other side, feeling empowered and ready to live a much different life, is that's already inspiring, and we haven't even dove anywhere into the story. What's exciting for you about sharing your story today?
It's important for me to share my story, and why I'm excited to share my story is I think there are so many people out there who think that it can't happen for them, that they want better. I think there's a tiny part of them that thinks that they deserve better, but for whatever reason, it can't happen for them. And that's how I felt. And I think since I was like a very small child, like I've felt like this, like that special light inside, but it kept getting like extinguished and covered up and snuffed out by, these like very irresponsible adults and predatory adults. And even my mother and father, who, were just very negligent and didn't protect me. And I want to give hope to people who maybe are new to this medicine or haven't tried it or have thought about it. Like there is hope. There is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a way forward for you, even if you think you've tried everything else, which I feel like I've tried quite a bit. There is a way forward. There is a way. There is hope for us all, I think.
You were mentioning that you were suffering from PTSD and from all of this negligence and abuse. And what was your level of awareness around? Because, sometimes if this is all you know, right, especially if it happened really early on, then you might not know that life could be different. Sometimes I see people taking these plants and realizing for the first time that they were living in that state that you were talking about. Were you aware of this before?
I think my brain was aware of it. After 20, I've been in therapy for 20 years. So I feel like my brain and my ego are on steroids. Like it's so overdeveloped, and I was leading with that. But my brain was telling me, like you have like such deep trauma. And I knew the symptom, like I knew it here, but I couldn't feel it here. And so I knew that like I would get stuck in shame spirals. I struggle to trust people. I want to be close to people, but I also want to push them away. I also want to maybe hurt them before they can hurt me. I had such a problem with emotional regulation and just like being stuck in these shame spirals where I would self-sabotage and then do another thing that would make me feel even worse about myself. And I wanted good things, but I didn't know how to get them. And even when I encountered good people or good things in my life, it felt so uncomfortable that like I like trauma and toxicity and shame and darkness, like that was my sweet spot. That was my comfort zone. And so I was like mentally aware of it, but I knew there was like something in me just knew that there was another way of being, but I just could not, for the life of me, I couldn't figure out like how to get there or what that is, but I knew that it was out there.
When you were having these emotional reactions and pushing people away or trying to hurt them before they hurt you, and you said like that would bring some shame in you, was that from the feeling that there was something wrong with you intrinsically, or were you aware that, oh, this is probably my trauma, and if I manage to somehow heal it, then maybe these behaviors will stop?
I think I had like minimal awareness about that. I did feel like there was something intrinsically wrong with me. I felt that the trauma that I sustained it was like in my nerve fibers. Like it was so deep that like, I just felt like I just could never remove it. I could never release it. It was just a part of me, and I was damaged, and I just had to accept it.
Wow, I can imagine that even if there's a little string of hope there, which there must have been if you kept seeking, right? Like, but probably there was a lot of that little string of hope must have been surrounded by a lot of hopelessness around. I can imagine.
Just debilitating almost. Debilitating. And I used to, yeah, it was just like overwhelming at times. Like, how can I get, like, I struggled so hard to get out from under it. And I just held on to this like shred of hope that there just has to be a way. I hope I find it I, before it's too late.
Mm.
And what too late looked like for me was like, I had been in therapy. I had, tried these different modalities and antidepressants and ketamine therapy. And, when you feel like you're doing all the right things and none of it is working, that just almost makes you feel even worse. Like,
right.
I'm doing all the stuff, and I still don't feel like well or good. And it got to a point where you just get exhausted and you don't see any like improvement or results. And I think I got to a point where I had just been like, trying to out achieve, outwork my trauma to like, just to like keep it to keep it passing. But it was always like right behind me. It was just always right on my heels. So I just felt like I was always treading water, that if I stopped doing any of the things for a moment, I would sink. I would drown.
So doing all of these things and not seeing results, it's almost like a confirmation that, yeah, you were born wrong. Something's wrong with you and it's not fixable. Like,
beyond help.
Beyond repair.
Yeah.
And then you were also mentioning that you had these ways of coping with all of that. You developed ways of coping. Some of them you already mentioned earlier. Pushing people away probably is a way of coping.
Mm-hmm.
I can assume that it maybe comes from a place of those who are supposed to love you and protect you hurt you deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am assuming, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that is going to bring a sense of distrust in general towards everybody.
100%.
Because if those who love me, supposed to love me,
mm-hmm.
I already distrust those. What about everybody else who is not even supposed to necessarily love me?
Yeah, I mean, no one's safe.
No one's safe.
Yeah.
And so you coped by pushing them away or trying to hurt them. Tell me more about that, like trying to hurt them before they hurt you.
Yeah, I think, like some of the ways that I, tried to cope or emotionally regulate or self-medicate was, the obvious: drinking, drugs, self-harm, food issues, over working out, overdoing it, just like putting my body through all kinds of hell, I think, just to maybe feel something different. But yeah, pushing people away and trying to like hurt them, I think was about, I didn't want to I didn't want to get taken advantage of again. So I'm going to get you before you get me, because you are not going to hurt me. You are not going to take advantage of me. I'm not, vulnerable. And I would just put all the, I feel like, my soul was kind of walking around, and I would like pick up like pieces of metal and just, ways of coping. And that was like a makeshift like suit of armor that I walked around in. And, no one stuck up for me. Like, no one fought for me. So I had to fight for myself the best way I knew how. And sometimes you're fighting fire with fire because you don't know any better, and you're just going for what you know. And sometimes that looks like, rage out of nowhere. Sometimes that looks like, just being hateful, being, obnoxious, just being mean, looking for like a vulnerability in someone and just waiting for the right moment to like really, really hurt them. Because I also wanted to show like how tough I was on the outside. And like, fuck you, like you can't hurt me. And just, I adopted this like whole persona that I thought was like my personality, but it was just the whole suit, the whole armor, that was all a trauma response. So I didn't come to realize that until I think in the last few years, which was like a fracturing of self, which is, that's super like painful and hard to swallow too. Like I'm not who I thought I was. So who am I?
I want to take a moment to kind of accent that last thing you said, that you said, that is, I thought that was my personality, which kind of implies that that's just who you are. Like you're born that way in a way. Yet you've been realizing that that's not necessarily who you were. It was you plus all the armor needed to protect yourself from all the things that have happened to you as a child. Which is interesting because if you, exactly you, the way you are, same genes, same atoms put exactly the same way, would have had either a different set of parents or the same parents, but that would have been diligent and loving and cared for you and protected you, exactly the same person would have a very different personality.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Which is like the armor that you were talking about. And you mentioned that is a little bit hard to swallow, to know that. Why is that?
I think because to kind of use a metaphor, I've been at war my whole life, or at least that's what I thought. And it's like only recently did I get like a mental phone call, like the war's over. Like you don't have to keep fighting. Like it's safe now. Like you're okay. And like when you've lived a certain way your whole entire life, like I'm talking about like for 40 years, I've lived like I've felt like I was in the foxhole, and to feel like I don't have to live that way anymore, which is like, such a blessing. But then also one further, like, okay, so how do I live in the world now? Like, how do I exist? And like, who am I really? Because I'm not my trauma. I'm not this armor suit. Like, who is Melissa now? And who has she been really, like the whole time, right? Like there are parts of me that, from when I was a kid, and like the sweet parts, the soft parts, the light parts, like those are all still there. And part of this journey has been to like rediscover those parts and like give them sunlight and water them, and let them know it's safe to come out now.
So like the hard parts are like, it's like growing a new skin. It's like, I'm unprotected now. I know I don't need the protection, but it feels weird to not be protected, or it feels unsafe or vulnerable.
It does. It does. And I feel like I'm, it's an ongoing thing of me kind of like, I call it like I got to adjust my levels of like, vulnerability and sensitivity, and like, is this like, I'll be in a situation like, is this a time for me to like be fierce and like let the tiger out of the cage, or can I dial it? Like just finding like, just modulating myself, and like that emotional regulation that I was talking about, like even that is it's just such a new, I don't know, consideration in my life. Because I only knew a couple of speeds before. I only knew like like go hard or disassociate, go hard or fall back. Like there was no like shades of gray or different speeds. It was just only a couple.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that a lot of people watching this will feel identified. It seems to be something that our society suffers a lot from.
Mm-hmm.
And you are discovering that that is just so that you can cope with everything that you've been carrying. And I'm curious now, why is it safe? Why did it become safe? What has shifted?
How long is this podcast? I think a couple of things stand out to me, which is a lot of things stand out, but I think through this work, I am able to trust my instincts and trust that voice in my head and really trust the voice in my heart. Mm-hmm. And the more I lean into it and the more I like listen into it, it gets louder and it gets clearer. And that's like becoming my compass now versus, whatever stories I'm telling myself. And I think I've discovered like a level of discernment that like I didn't even know what discernment was before. Mm-hmm. Like, is this right for me? Does this feel right to me? Is this something I'm interested in or into? Or I don't think that's really for me, or that person is really like my vibe or whatever. Like there's this compass kind of gives me like that, I don't know, just like that knowing, that like that fine tuning of like what's for me and what doesn't feel right for me. And I think the biggest thing is learning what boundaries are. I didn't know what boundaries were before because that was never modeled to me. And also, like from a very young age, I wasn't allowed to have boundaries. Like my dad just beat the shit out of me and I had no agency or authority over my person.
Right.
And I just didn't have any, my experience as a kid was you just got to shut up and take it. Mm. And
so you were saying there's no modeling of boundaries, but in a way there is. The modeling of boundaries is they are meant to be crossed and violated.
Right. Mm. And so I feel like, listening to that inner voice, fine-tuning that discernment, realizing like where your boundaries are and learning how to communicate them with people. I think those are the things that have allowed me to like kind of come out, so to speak, and feel a level of safety that I wasn't able to previously.
How do you think your personality, since your personality was your armor for a while, how are you noticing your personality changing, or how do you feel that it will continue to evolve as you are taking this armor away? Is there something that you already noticed?
Yeah, there's quite a bit that I've noticed. I think I just used to be just like so hard on myself and so hard on people and just like so judgmental. And
you must be the only one.
I'm sure nobody can relate to that.
No one does that.
But now I'm discovering like a softer side of myself. Like I actually don't like being mean. I like being sweet. I like being soft with people. I like, hugging people when I feel comfortable with them. And I like, being kind and, sharing hope and sharing connection with people and being loving with people. And I feel like I'm discovering, I was that way when I was a very, very small child. I was so loving and just like wanted to like give you hugs and like tell you stories and make you laugh and make you smile and do nice things for people. And that just all got extinguished, but now I'm discovering like little Melissa is, those qualities are still present in adult Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
And even doing this podcast is like a huge thing for me to be able to talk about things that are very like personal and very like vulnerable. Like this is huge for me to be having this conversation with you even. So, and just being in the rooms of and ceremonies and interacting with the community, it's like I'm discovering like I like to be nice. I enjoy it,
So much better, right?
I like to be kind. I like to be sweet. I love to make people laugh. And, that it's just this being in ceremony and being with the community has really helped me open up and has allowed me to be seen and to be heard and to be witnessed. And that's so huge. That's so huge. Like you can't get that you can't get that in 20 years of therapy. You can't get that existing in a vacuum. Like you need a supportive community around you to help you bloom as a person. So what a blessing.
It's like, as I hear you say that, I can see how much it means. This tends to be true for most people, but we're talking about you right now, how much it means to be witnessed and seen and received, because it's the opposite of what you got when you were talking about your boundaries being violated and saying like, now you must take whatever I'm going to give you. Abuse, physical, verbal, emotional, all of that. And that is a way of not being witnessed and not being seen, right? You're feeling a lot of things when that is happening. But who's there to say, come, Melissa, this was not right for you. Like, I see you're in pain. Probably even if you were to complain, which would be a way of expressing that you are in pain, I assume you might have gotten it worse, right? If you were to stand up to your dad or complain about what your boundaries being violated, you're probably like, I'm sure you weren't received in your pain because somebody was causing it.
No, the message that I got was, you don't matter. And one further, fuck you. Like you don't matter. You're nothing. You're not important. You're nobody. And that was also the experience that I had when I got molested. No one wanted to believe that this person was capable of it because he was so beloved by the community. It was much easier to blame me. And so to be in a space where, and then consequently I would get into these relationships, with men romantic relationships where, I guess we felt close, but I felt so alone. I didn't feel seen. I didn't feel heard. I didn't feel appreciated or received. And then to get in a collective like this where people are just like looking at you like, I see you. I hear you. That's so fucking powerful to just, and I didn't even know that that's what I needed before I came into this space. I didn't even know that that was what the game was missing for me. Like, but now to have experienced it, it's like, it's been so healing for my soul. And I think when you're somebody in therapy, you're working on your head.
Right.
That's all that is for, is to work on your head. And, I love my brain. I'm, very thankful for it. But, I think you get to a certain point in, regular therapy, and they say this in 12-step, which is self-knowledge avails us not. So I feel like you can know everything that you want to know about your own trauma. You know exactly why it happened, and
you can make an encyclopedia of it.
I can do an interpretive dance. I can paint you a picture. I can do whatever you want. But like what was missing for me was like my spirit needed healing. My heart needed healing. And you can't get that in like the traditional modalities that are available out there.
Like less talking, more experiencing kind of thing. Like one experience where you reconnect with your heart, or where your emotions are finally seen and received by others, which can probably help you be seen and received by yourself. Like all of that can do so much more than just talking about it for years, maybe.
Well, yeah, and even just the idea of being seen, feeling seen, being received. Like I didn't even have that language 2 years ago. Like I was like,
what does that mean?
Right? Like you could see, I'm standing right in front of you. Of course you could see me. Like I didn't know what that really meant. Like,
of course my eyes can be posed on yours. Yeah, being seen. It's almost like your pain is being received and shared and cared for. For those people who have never drunk plant medicine, who might have heard of it, who maybe are curious, maybe they are not brave enough, or it's kind of there in the radar. One day, I think I have two questions. One is, was that you at some point? And you can tell me more about it. And the second question is, what happened? Because they're hearing you say all of these things, right? Like you can get liberated, you can finally start living your life. And I'm putting myself in the shoes of those who have no clue what happens when you drink some sort of medicine, whichever medicine that is. So being in their shoes, what would you say to them? What happened? You drank this thing. Why all of a sudden you are seen and your armor's gone and all of that? So yeah, tell me more about if you were one of those people who were scared and hesitant, and what, if you want, also what made you decide to finally pull the trigger? How did you come to be, and what happened once you drank?
Okay, so first of all, this is not like an overnight story by any stretch of the imagination. So I was on your mailing list for 5 years. And so I was on your mailing list for 5 years, and I was like intrigued and interested, but I was also like really scared. And I guess like I wasn't ready. And then a situation happened a few years ago where I was in this like very toxic work situation. I was in this very toxic relationship, and I just felt like it was what I was saying before. Like I wanted better for myself, but I didn't know how to get it. I was like very depressed, suicidal, and I was in a 5150 hold. Came out, and was just in therapy. Was in outpatient treatment for a while. And then COVID happened, and, I'm still doing my therapy. I did, ketamine, IV ketamine therapy for a while, was fleeting. And I just felt myself just start to sink like a rock. And I just thought, I'm doing all the right shit. But if this is as good as my life is going to get, if this is the best I'm ever going to feel, I don't want it. I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And so I got the quiet gift of desperation and was like, I'll try anything. I'll try ayahuasca. I don't care if I die, whatever. This is just so awful. And I know if I want different, I have to do different, no matter how scared I am. So finally I went to a ceremony, just scared. Oh, I was so scared. And I didn't know anybody. I went by myself. It was like, that particular group happened to be a lot of young people. I'm like, am I too old to be here? This feels like a Burning Man decomp party. These people are wearing white. I'm not entirely convinced it's not a cult. I didn't know you. So I'm just here, and people are coming up to hug me, and they're like, can I hug you? And I, in all seriousness, I was like, oh, do I know you? Like
hugging strangers.
Yeah, go, hug yourself.
No
No, yeah, go hug yourself. No. And I was just so uncomfortable, and I'm I'm pushing people away, but at the same time, I'm like, who are the adults? I dropped into my 5-year-old kid self. I'm like, where are the adults if something goes wrong, and who's going to help me? And it was just such a triggering thing for me to even be there. And I'm just I'm rolling the dice and surrendering to God. Okay, well, I'm here now. And I took the first dose, and then immediately I'm hearing people purge next to me, and I'm just like, oh, hell no. Oh my God. I was just in misery.
What did I get myself involved in?
Right. And I even prayed to Jesus, Jesus, I've had better ideas. This is probably not my best idea. If you could just deliver me out of here, I would really appreciate it, And I felt God look at me kid, the train's left the station. You're on the ride, So I just had to buckle up and learn how to ride the wave, and which I did. And it was, again, all super uncomfortable for me. And I think after that first journey, it scared the shit out of me so bad I didn't come back for a year, because I just didn't have the tools or the capacity or the awareness or the sight or anything to what just something really earth-shattering just happened, and it's so profound that I don't even know how to process it. And it was super scary.
Before you move, after what happened after that year, I'm curious, what was the scariest part? Was it the environment and the people and the cult situation, hugging tree huggers, or what happened during your experience that was so profound and earth-shattering?
It was I was just getting these truth bombs landing on me, of you a lot of it had to do with me staying too long in situations, and seeing certain situations for how they truly are. And the wild part of it was I wasn't hearing anything brand new. It was a tiny kernel of knowing that I always had, but just didn't know how to listen to it. And so it was more of this kind of profound confirmation in a lot of ways. And then there was a beautiful moment where I was able to connect with my inner child, with little Melissa, and just sit her on my lap and just spend time with her. And that was my big takeaway from that ceremony. But the purging was a lot, and I also had a lot of body purges. I was so in discomfort from moving around so much that I was oh man, I don't know if I can go through that again. But after it kind of became clear during that weekend that there's so much trauma trapped in your body and my body, and this is how we get it out. And
in my body too.
And yes, but it was just, the whole thing was just it was a lot. It was, like I said, it scared me shitless, and I didn't come back for a year.
So it's you became maybe that awareness that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast. You said you always had a level of awareness around it, but that's when there was like a, hey, you can't unsee it now. Like
Yeah.
this is what's been happening with you throughout your life.
Yeah.
Getting, you said, messages about what's going on with you, um and yeah, I can understand why that can be very scary. It's like all of a sudden you're introduced to the things that you knew they were there, but you probably didn't want them to be there.
Well, and I think I've lived my way. I lived my life in a certain way for so long, and I told myself certain stories to like really help keep me alive for so long,
Mm-hmm.
and to like realize that maybe those stories aren't true,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not real,
Mm-hmm.
and like it kind of like cracked the door open, and once that door is open, you can't close it.
Right.
It's just,
Fortunately.
yeah.
Because if we would be able to close it, we probably would.
Mm.
Right? Like if you would have been able to kind of backtrack that journey, like press a button, be like, actually, I'm going to, make a different decision and close this door that I just opened and realize all the monsters that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You might have done it. So fortunately, we can't go back. So what made you come back after being so scared?
Um, I think I I started to experience the symptoms that I had before, where I was like, carrying around this like pretty heavy depression, and um, just I knew that I could feel better. I just didn't know how, but I felt like with like there's a door open, and there might be something there if I can just keep walking through it. Like I feel like I can find something that's going to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And that next ceremony that I went to a year later, um, just this truly the heavens opened for me, and I felt like the presence of God and of Aya, yeah, this is real, and you are trying. We see you, like you are seen, like we see you trying so hard, and like you get in your way so much, but you're trying so hard, and you're doing it, like you're seeking, you're 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 seeking, and you're advocating for yourself, and you're protecting yourself, and you're doing these things for yourself, you're healing yourself. And like that second ceremony was just, I mean, it was just so profound. Like that, like truly the heavens opened, and light just shone down on me on my little cot on the floor. And I felt like this warm presence. And I thought, wow, like the God I've been praying to all these years actually heard me. And for my whole life, I felt like I was just like sending fan mail to a God that I wasn't even sure was there. I'm not even sure he was hearing me, but that journey was confirmation of yeah, like, yes, you know, like I'm real. This is real. This is all real. And it just felt so good to be like acknowledged in that way by my higher power. After all the like years and years of like suffering and getting in my own way, and not thinking my brain knows what's best, and not listening to my heart. My heart is my true compass.
Did you know that before?
No.
Did you know what that even meant?
No.
Okay. That's very beautiful.
Like all this, I'm like kind of stunned to even hear myself talk in this way, because I didn't have any of this language a couple of years ago. I didn't even have it I feel like all this has like come to fruition within like the last year and a half. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to dog out therapy, because I think it's a really helpful tool.
Absolutely.
And I feel like in my therapeutic work, like I laid a great foundation for myself. And that's why I've experienced and realized so much growth in such a short period of time. But yeah, I didn't have the language or the tools, like being like I said, like the example of being seen, like, yeah, I mean, I'm standing right in front of you. Like I just didn't know. Like you don't have words, you don't have actions, you don't have thoughts to put behind it, because like that emotional intelligence for me was never modeled. I never saw that in anybody that was around me as a child or a teenager, or even as an adult. Like, so it's all been like learning in this laboratory, this classroom, this church that, we call, community. It's really been here that I'm just such a student when I'm here. And I want to suck in like all of the experiences, and when people share something, like in a share circle yesterday, people bring back like, here are things that I've learned since I last saw you. And I just love that. I just love that, like, we're out there in our journeys and in our life journey outside of ceremony, like picking up like these little bits of knowledge and these like tokens and talismans of like guidance and knowledge and insights, and then we bring it back to the group and we're all wiser for it. That's so beautiful to me.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I'm also not against therapy. Like, I never want for anyone to think, when I talk about alternative medicines, which work both for the body and for the mind, I never wanted to be assumed that because it works for the body, then I'm against Western medicine, or because it works with the mind, for the mind, then I'm against psychology. As a matter of fact, you witnessed it, how much psychology I bring into the sessions, and how important that is to be able to talk about these things too, not just experience, like kind of have a holistic combination of all of it, and how the mind and the body are so connected, and the heart, obviously. Well, the hearts are, better said, they should be connected. And when they are not, which is very common, then everything that you're talking about and more happens. So,
well, I'm getting to know that, like, I'm trying to communicate to my being that, like, my head, my heart, and my body, like, we're all on the same team, guys.
right.
And for the longest time, they were, very separate.
So you talked about the heavens opened up for you, and what do you feel that ceremony has given to you? Like, you went back home. Besides the ceremony being beautiful and being seen and learning all of these things, what happened after that?
So what happened was, I got a glimpse of what my highest self could look like, or what it looks like. And the light at the end of the tunnel, this dark tunnel, is my highest self. And if I keep tunneling towards it, I'm gonna get there. And that's what I felt like. That ceremony was the beginning of like, oh, like,
There is hope.
There is hope. And I'm tunneling through all my, trauma and garbage and shame and taking on other people's shame and all, like, I'm tunneling through all of this to understand it, release it, and get closer to, I guess, as close to, I don't know, my highest self-actualization, the top of the pyramid as you can get. And like, I just got so much, like, I was so inspired and so hopeful and like so, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I felt like blown up like a balloon after that. And I caught sight of hope, and I just wanted to keep chasing it. And so I did 3 ceremonies last year. And then I did Iboga, which is its own beautiful thing. And then this one just recently.
So you've done about maybe 5 or 6?
6.
6. Do you feel like after each one of them, or during and after each one of them, something something new happened, something maybe equally as profound?
Each time has, each ceremony has blown me the fuck away.
Okay.
Um,
I'll take that as a yes.
each ceremony, I feel like there are different themes for me for each ceremony, and I'm working on a different thing. And it's just like, it just has blown me away with like the insights that I get about myself, and how I'm better able to understand my trauma, understand how, excuse me, I've been affected, and also like releasing the shame. I felt like I ate so much shame, and I took on so much of other people's shit, like just shit that just wasn't mine. And I'm able to release it, and I'm able to just like better understand myself, and have like a deeper love and gratitude for myself here. But yeah, each ceremony is so uniquely different, and the lessons that I've gotten are so different, and the alchemy of each group of people is so unique.
Yeah.
And it's some are people that I've met before, and some are new people, but like I find that like that unique combination of people, just our paths crossed at this particular time, and I feel like that uniqueness adds a lot to it also.
What do you think, or do you feel better said? Um, what do you feel you've been carrying your whole life that you have let go of? Which chains, which uh, what was in your backpack that we all carry throughout our life? Which rocks have you been releasing out of it that makes you, yeah, feel maybe lighter or
That it wasn't my fault.
hmm. Oh, that's a good one.
It wasn't my fault.
It was not.
And I'm not broken. I'm not bad. Um, I'm not ruined. Um, I can just let all that go. Um, I feel like I've been carrying an incredible amount of judgment against myself for so long. I can let that go. I can start to let it go. Um, but yeah, just the the biggest chain I could drop is, it's not my fault. It was never my fault. And I feel like this is a really common saying, but in practice, it's quite profound. I'm s- I'm forgiving myself for things that I did in survival mode, and to really look at those things, and just know that, like, you know, it's like every action I've taken in my life, every reaction, every thought, every dream I've had has been in response to me being molested. Like that was the compass for my whole entire life. And I didn't realize it. I just had been running from it for so long. But that was the North Star for my whole entire life. And now it does, like, now that I understand that, it doesn't have to be that way anymore. And just to be able to release that, I just feel so light, and I am full of light.
You are. I can see it in your eyes. right now, and since we started doing this work, I've seen so much progress in you, which is why I wanted to have you here. It's been very inspiring to see how somebody can go from the stories that you're talking about, from being beaten and sexually abused more than once, and shamed and put down, to I know you have not shared everything, mm, partially because we have some limited time, um, and also some of these are, we were talking earlier, it's just these are could be really hard stories to hear. I think you've shared things that are really vulnerable to share anyway, and that requires a lot of bravery, and yet we've spent several weekends together, and I know that it was even worse than everything you shared today. There was much more. I'm not sure the word is worse, but there was a lot more around the same lines. Um, which, yeah, as you mentioned earlier, it might not be necessary to share all of it, but for the audience to know that, yeah, this is just a part of it. There's much more, and to know that someone who has gone through all of that can come out on the other side in the way in which you are now, loving yourself, and removing self-judgment, and telling yourself these things were not your fault, and yeah, and feeling light, and feeling that there's hope after so many years of hopelessness. Ooh. Yeah, your story is extremely inspiring, and I want you to know that obviously this doesn't justify it or make it right, but at the very least, and I know there's more than this, I know that your story will help a lot of other people who are walking a similar path that they are not choosing, that is not their fault. I think you were talking yesterday, you gave me a statistic about how many women have gone through sexual abuse.
Yeah, I think the statistic is like something like one in 5 or 1 in 7 girls will be sexually abused before they're 18. That's staggering. That's staggering, and that it's not just an isolated incident. It's not a thing of like, oh, that doesn't happen in our family, or that doesn't happen in my community, or at my school, or at my church. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
And it's not just, like what a sexual abuse survivor looks like, or a child sexual abuse survivor looks like. I mean, it can be your colleague, it can be your best friend, it can be your sister, your cousin, your boss, whoever's checking you out at the grocery store. Like, there are so many of us walking around with this trauma, and carrying the fact that we were violated. And I want to just, if anything, I want to give people hope and courage, that there is a way, and healing is possible. Because I'm just living fucking proof of it. And my trauma was so severe that I didn't think it was possible. And I had tried all of the things and nothing worked. And I found this, and this is just, it's given me a life that I didn't know was possible for me.
I really wish for all the lawmakers to hear this.
I mean, the effects of, being sexually abused as a child, your soul was destroyed. Your spirit's destroyed, period. And, I feel like I'm honestly like one of the lucky ones, because I'm here talking to you, doing this podcast. It's a beautiful day outside, but so I feel so grateful. But that's not to say that like I didn't go through hell to get here, and I know that there are so many of us out there still in hell, but just grinding it out, trying to survive. And I would just encourage them to consider this way, consider plant medicine, just think about it. And it's not going to happen overnight. I don't want people to hear this and think like, oh, she just did it a couple times and she's what new.
No.
That's new. But this has just been like I have tools now. I have building blocks that weren't available to me before through this medicine.
Yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about it too. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful to see that smile and to be sitting here with you. It's a constant reminder that that there's always hope. Sometimes I lose hope, and I have not gone through sexual abuse, and so obviously, I think if anyone here in the audience has gone through sexual abuse, they probably resonate with your message. Maybe they're touched by it or moved, or it brings hope to them, which is great and needed and important. And one of the reasons why I wanted you to share your story. And at the same time, there are people who might be thinking, well, I have not gone through all of that. So that's why I want to talk about that, because I have not gone through all of that. Yet sometimes I do lose hope for different reasons. I have my own set of traumas and that bring hopelessness into the surface. As a matter of fact, hopelessness is an emotion that seems to be pretty prevalent on me, that shows up very often for a completely different reason, which is more related to, well, in a way it's completely different, and in a way there's something shared. For mine is all the violence and the just knowing that these things happen, and also having my heart always cracked open. And your story and stories like yours affect me a lot, and sometimes I'm the same way. I just don't want to be in a world where that happens. And yet then I go through my process and other perspectives show up where that bring me a lot of hope. And so whether you have gone through something so terrible and difficult or not, I feel like healing is essential and also available to anybody who wants to live a better life. And having such an example, why am I bringing this up, is because if people like me that have not gone through something as rough sometimes lose hope, then seeing people like you who have gone through something like that come on the other side and be in such a hopeful state, I think it's very inspiring to me, because I'm like, well, Ivan, you have not gone through shit in comparison. Like, what are you complaining about? I know the answer to that. I also have my own set of stuff, but it does bring a lot of, yes, it is possible to heal no matter what has happened.
That's right.
No matter what has happened. Some things might be harder to heal from, but as you said, you are the living proof that even through the hardest experiences, especially in formative years, you can still come out the other side. Even if it took 40 years, it's better now than never.
5 years on the mailing list.
Yeah. I also had another question for you, which was, what gifts, skills, and things about you that are positive do you feel that you have received from the sexual abuse and the physical abuse and all the abuse that you got and the harder experiences? They probably have given you something. Do you think you can talk about that?
I think the one thing that came to mind immediately is I don't quit.
Ooh.
I don't give up.
Mm.
And it takes a lot to let me rephrase. Let me start over. Um, the one thing that comes to mind is that I don't quit, that I don't give up, and you can't take me down. You can't take me out. It's not happening because I've just been through so much, and I have like that inner strength and that inner fortitude. Like it's not like I can't be conquered. Like it's not happening. And I'm such a fighter, even during the medicine. Like
Yes, you are.
even last night, like I went through a whole painful thing, and then I told you, I said I'm ready for my second dose. Like I still got work to do, and like I love that I have like that fighter spirit. That's like I think where I get a lot of like strength and power from. Like you can shoot me, but you can't kill me. And I walk out of these ceremonies like really just really aware of how powerful that is.
So like in extreme resilience, like he has made you really strong. I can tell. I wouldn't want to get in a fight with you. I better have you as a friend.
I think even like I want this. I want to get to like I want to be better. I want to get to that like higher. I shouldn't say get to because it's not a destination, but I want to embody more and more of, and I'm so hungry for it. And there's just something in me that won't quit. And that's really pushing me and like helping me like tunnel, like I was saying, through all of the like, trauma and shame and garbage and bullshit. Like that's really like propelling me forward.
Yeah, I see that in you. I see all the gifts that well, maybe not all of them, but I see many of them, that the incredible person you have become that now are parts of your personality, like being resilient and never quitting. I don't know if those things would be there without the trauma you received, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe you would have a different set of skills and gifts. But I think I'm just mentioning it because sometimes we forget that with every form of trauma, there's also a gift that comes with it. And so we've become very negative about our trauma. Like negative, it might not be the right word, but we really wish it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And obviously, I'm not saying I'm glad this happened. Yet that part of ourselves that says, I wish this wouldn't have happened, can be, maybe there's a little bit of relief to that part when we understand that the things that it has given us to us, right? And knowing that the trauma itself can be healed. If it wouldn't be able to be healed, based on everything you were saying before, maybe you would be like, yeah, I'm resilient, I never give up, but I still don't want to live. That's how you started. And now you're like, I am resilient and I'm a fighter and I don't give up, but life is beautiful, right? And that those gifts have stayed. And bringing it up both for you as a reminder, right? Like, hey, you are awesome, and the person that you have become is so admirable and so beautiful to be with. But also for the audience who might be like, well, maybe that sparks some curiosity. It's like, well, what has my trauma have given me? So it's a reminder that it's not all negative. There's some, I know that this might sound strange, right?
Yeah,
like,
no,
there are some positives to it, and the trauma can heal.
And I think it's important to try to look at it that way, because I think if you only see the bad, if you only see like what happened, that's a really heavy weight to carry.
Mm.
And I think in finding, like, I'll just say, like, but a silver lining, like, it makes that load a little lighter.
Yeah.
And I think, going back to that same question, I think one of the things that's come out of it and through this work in plant medicine, I'm so passionate about like bringing hope to people, and for people who like maybe have gone through similar circumstances, or maybe they haven't, maybe they got a different set of things they're dealing with, but like healing is possible. It's so possible. But it's not going to come overnight, but it's there. It's out there for you if you choose to seek it. And if you seek it, you will be met with light, with hope, with healing. Like it can happen. It so can. And I find the more that I hurl myself into the abyss, when I take the medicine, I know that like I'm going to be caught, I'm going to be supported. Yes, probably going to be a little rough, but I'm going to come out the other side, and I loved, you said this the first ceremony that I went to, and I just held, like, that was just like the one thing I was holding on to the whole time.
What was that? So maybe I'll keep it in my arsenal and repeat it every time.
Keep it in the program. You said that this medicine is intelligent. And that just gave me a mental picture of like, this medicine will find what I can handle and what I can and where it can heal me. And it will find those openings in me that it can reach. And that just, I was like, well, I don't know this dude, but I like what he just said. So, so I was like, I guess we'll just ride out on that and see what happens. And I think about that now every time you do the opening talk, and it still gives me a lot of comfort. But yeah, there's healing is out there.
I'm having a great time having this chat with you.
Me too. I know I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I really believe in what you're doing and what we do here, and it's so powerful.
I brought you in so that you could talk as much as you want. When I say more than 10 words in a row, I'm like, it's not me who should be talking. Just ask a question and let her talk, because it's beautiful, powerful, inspiring. I remember when I asked you to come, I was riding my bike. It was a miracle that you could even hear me with so much wind. Because I remember riding the bike, and somehow my headphones were picking up, and you told me many details about your recent experience back then, and just hearing you and being so inspired and so ready to live, and so not only just ready to live, but ready to live after decades of wanting to not live, or to be dull, or like all of that. That difference is, I was like, if only people could hear stories like this, then they would probably be closer to trying, to saying like, hey, that could be me.
That's right.
Yeah, that could be me. And I know that is true because I see it all the time. But if I talk about it, it's like, well, he's a facilitator. Of course, he's going to talk about it. So if I was like, I really would love for people to hear your story, and I'm so grateful and so happy that you said yes to it. Maybe I'm curious, just to kind of come to an end. What does it feel like to share your story with the world?
I feel so free. I feel so free. This is the first time that I've talked in a I don't know, like a semi-public setting about what happened to me and what I've experienced. And it feels good that I'm turning my pain into purpose, and
Ooh.
that that I'm able to um, I feel like I've got a word for somebody. I'm carrying a word for somebody or somebody's to seriously consider this medicine, and or if you've maybe just dipped a toe in, maybe you just did a one ceremony like me, and you were scared, and you haven't done it like this. This is a process to really be embraced, I think, if you can. And there's just so much to be gained and to be realized in terms of growth. But yeah, this is a real privilege for me and a real honor. And I always had this thing in the back of my mind, like if there was, if I make it out of this alive, what can I do? How can I help the people that are out there struggling the same as me? And I didn't have the strength or the capacity or the facility to, I guess, like share my story, but I do now. And I truly hope that this reaches even just one person. It's all possible.
Yeah. Thank you for, I really like what you said, for transforming your pain into purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is possible for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to come to a podcast. They can become aware of what that pain is, heal it, and then take it from there to become a better version of themselves and becoming the gift that the world is in need of them.
The world needs you.
Yes.
The world, like, for people out there, the world needs you.
You can say that directly
The
to
world
them.
needs you. I feel like the world is in such a state of crisis. And you were speaking about, like, we live in such a violent world, with just so much happening, and war and destruction, that the world needs you and needs your gifts and needs what you have to offer. And the world wants to hear what you have to say. And this is a great place to get started.
Yeah, the world needs us because you and everybody's gifts. Because even though we live in a violent world, we don't live in a world that does not have the capacity to be kind. If it would be just violent and this is all of its potential, then maybe screw this work and screw everything. But it is the possibility of living in the kind and beautiful world that we see it. We see it possible. It is there. And yeah, thank you for the work that you've done for yourself. Thank you for being brave to decide to take a look at yourself, even though if the reason for it was, how did you call it, the gift of desperation?
Yes.
Even if desperation was, sometimes people are desperate and they still decide not to, or decide or don't know that they can do something about it. So I want you to know, and especially both. I want both of you. So you sitting in front of me, and little Melissa, and all of the versions of little Melissa at 5, at 10, at 15. The Melissa that was hopeless, the Melissa that was being abused. That as hard as that was, that there is hope. You are here, and that pain is being transformed into purpose, and that I am sure that is going to bring healing into the world by hearing your words and by being touched by who you became and who you're becoming every day, every time you're moving forward in your healing journey. So, and thank you for being brave to come here and be vulnerable and expose something so fragile and with who knows how many people. I think it's very noble, and I am in very deep appreciation of you and admiration, and thank you so much for being here today and sharing your story.
Thank you so much. This has been just an honor and a privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you. I love you, Coach.
Well, that was pretty amazing. I've heard this story before, which is why I brought Melissa here. And even though I'm hearing it again, I'm inspired again. And I hope that this has brought that level of inspiration to you and of hope. And if you're struggling with trauma or sexual abuse or hopelessness or suicidal thoughts, know that hope is out there. We have living proof of it right here, and I see it all the time. Maybe you can consider sharing this podcast and this video with anybody that you think that could benefit from it, somebody that has struggled with similar things or with whichever things that they might be struggling with. Healing is real, and I really hope that you can bring that message into your heart and into the hearts of other people. And I'll see you in next week's video. Bye.
Bye.
Click on the left square to watch another video I made on a related topic. All my content is free. If you appreciate it and wish to assist me to continue releasing this kind of content, please consider supporting me on Patreon. You can also follow me on my socials and subscribe to this channel.